father passed away yesterday at the age of 89. He was in the hospital for pneumonia, and he had a lot of problems, so I guess he couldn't handle the pneumonia. Anyways, just thought I'd make a video talking a little bit about my father. You know, I grew up in a time where, you weren't friends with your father. Your parents raised you. They didn't try to be friends with you, It wasn't until later in life that I started talking to him like normally, and learned a lot about his life, things that happened to him, like his best friend Stan. I have some memories, because as you get older, memories start to fade, but certain ones stick, like if they're traumatic or something like that. And his best friend got brain cancer. I remember him running to the bathroom, throwing up in his hands after going through chemotherapy, and he passed away, his best friend, and that was pretty hard. And what I didn't know at the time was that my dad's best friend had sold his business for several $1 million. He became a multi-millionaire, and then got brain cancer. Sucks. But my father, he outlived all his friends. Even though he was a smoker, he just decided to quit one day and was able to quit cold turkey. My father was an engineer. He worked on top secret projects for the government for a while. Designed nuclear missiles. He told me this one he designed to go underwater to take out nuclear submarines. And he also worked on the SR-71 Blackbird. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that plane, the spy plane. Now, he didn't work on the plane itself, he worked on the camera. And he told me the way they did it, they didn't tell him what it was that it was working on. They just, he knew it was a camera, and they just said it goes on a vehicle. That's all they said. And then they gave him some crazy temperature parameters, so they kind of figured it was for something, And later he found out it was the SR-71 Blackbird. He actually has he had a piece of glass from the camera of one of the SR-71s that crashed. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any markings, so no way to prove that it came from the SR-71. But he wasn't supposed to take it, so I suppose it might be considered contraband anyways. Then my father decided that he didn't want to build weapons anymore, so he went into the private sector and worked for this company called Electra Foods, designing industrial tortilla makers. And he held a grudge for the rest of his life against Mission Foods, because Mission Foods bought Electra. And according to him, well, he says they were racist. I don't know if it was racism or nationalism or just economics, but apparently they fired all the white employees and replaced them with Mexicans. So he hated Mission Foods from then on. And if you see the Mission tortillas, next time you go to buy tortillas, buy another brand. In his memory, after getting laid off Electra Foods, or getting fired from Electra Foods, I remember that time I was a young kid, and it was scary. having your father out of work. But he got another job working for a company called Brown International, which made industrial orange juice machines. And his company leased some machines to Tropicana in Bradenton, Florida, where I picked up some loads back when I was going to Florida. So it was kind of interesting that I was there picking up foods where he had been, when they installed the machines. He had to go there and supervise it and all that. And yeah, he worked at Brown International until he retired. Bought a piece of land up in Washington State and built a house on it. My parents retired up there, had some good years up there. Really nice house right on the ocean. I mean, there was a cliff and then the ocean, and it was right near a submarine base in Paulsbo, Washington. Nuclear subs used to come by. Yeah, but then they had to move back to California because of health reasons. My dad couldn't drive anymore. He was having memory problems, and so my brother bought a house across the street from him up there in Fremont, California, and that's where my mom's still living. My dad lived until he just passed away. Like I said, growing up, he was kind of the authoritarian. It was a different time. You weren't friends with your parents. Seems like kids today are friends with their parents, but that seemed strange to me when I was growing up. None of us, I think I had one friend who was friends with his parents, and it just seemed odd. But yeah, I have a couple memories. My parents were pretty strict, and they wouldn't let us watch movies unless they had watched it first and approved of it, right? And there was this movie that came out called Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom that was controversial. I'm sure many of you don't remember, or you weren't alive back then when Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out, but there was a lot of controversy over the part where he rips this guy's heart out. And so I wasn't allowed to see it, but I'm hearing all my classmates talking about it, my friends, and seeing things on TV about the making of it. Man, I really wanted to see it bad, but I wasn't allowed. One day my dad says, let's go. I'm like, where are we going? He takes me to the theater to watch Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And so when we're in the theater, I remember this guy next to me talking about, asking me if I'd seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, and talking about how great it was. And I was excited to see this movie. And I loved that movie, man. I loved Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I was a huge fan of that movie as a kid. I wanted to be Indiana Jones. I tried to learn Chinese because of that movie. Failed miserably, but I tried. Another story. And this kind of angered me. Sometimes still, I suppose I still feel a little bit of anger, but I have to admit that it was probably a good thing. When I was in high school, I bought my first gun, an illegal gun. I bought it from a friend of mine who was my connection for all things illegal. And I carried a gun. It was a Taurus 380, copy of a Beretta. Nice gun. Carried it everywhere, man. Carried it to school, carried it everywhere. But one day, I didn't take it with me, and went out with some friends, left it in my desk, and it was near 4th of July, and I always made illegal fireworks because we had the Safe and Sane fireworks, which were boring. So I knew how to make, take Piccolo Pete's apart and make them into M80s and things like that. So I was making M80s, and I was cutting up the Piccolo Pete's, and I had all the materials on my desk. So my dad went in my room and saw all that stuff and went through my desk looking for the M80s and finds my gun. Well, when I get home, he's like, I need to talk to you outside. We go out to the backyard and sit down, and he says, what are you doing with a loaded gun in my house? And I swear, the earth tilted. I was in more trouble than I'd ever been in. This is like serious trouble, right? So, man, my mind just like kind of cracked or something, and the earth tilted. And I was angry too that he went through my stuff, but I said, I found it. I found it. Wouldn't change my story, so he made me take it to the police station, turn it in. So anyways, that's the story. That was the first of 3 guns the cops have taken from me. I didn't get charged with anything. They tried to, they didn't believe me, and they tried to get me to change my story, but I didn't. But anyways, like I said, I was angry that my dad went through my stuff and everything, but I had planned to take that gun out on 4th of July and pop off a round, with all the fireworks going off. I figured I could shoot it. Well, I went out on 4th of July with some friends, and at one point I threw this M80 by this building, and it didn't go off. So after waiting for a little bit, I walked over and picked up the M80. Suddenly, there's headlights on me, right? This cop rolls up on me, and I'm kind of shocked and nervous. So I put it in my right pocket, right? And he's like, what do you got? I pulled out a ground bloom flower from my left pocket, so obvious, right? He's like, all right, get up against the car, right? Searches me, frisks me, takes all my illegal fireworks, and takes my name down, and then that's it, cuts me loose. So if I would have had that gun on me, and I had just turned 18 like a month and a half ago, so I would have got a felony charge right when I turned 18, man. That wouldn't have been good. So, even though it pissed me off that he went through my stuff, it probably saved me from getting into some serious trouble. Yeah, so I guess it happens. He lived to be 89 years old. He was alive during World War II, born in 1935. Had a job during World War II, riding his bicycle around telling everybody to close their curtains for the blackout, during the air raids. And yeah, so rest in peace,